This is your host, Marisol, a expat lifestyle and business coach, bringing you an episode of Roaming the Now, where expat entrepreneurs, coaches, and mentors come together to give you a behind-the-scenes look at the real and raw experience of what it actually means to set out to a new country and build a life and business abroad. Like and subscribe if you found some value in this episode, and check out the links in the description. You can find the link to get the Roaming the Now episodes delivered directly to your inbox in the description below. Hello and welcome to Roaming the Now. This is your host, Marisol, and today I have Petra Williams with us. Hello.
Hello, hi, Marisol, hi everybody.
So good to have you with us. So Petra is joining us from Australia, and I'm really excited for this conversation because through previous episodes that you've listened to, you're hearing this whole phrase, wherever you go, there you are, and people are talking about basically the stuff that follows you while you're traveling. And Petra, her area of expertise is shadow work. So I'm really excited to dive into this conversation with Petra. Before we do that, I would love for you to just share a little bit more about you and your background.
Oh, thank you. Okay, so right now, what defines me the most, work-wise, is definitely that I focus on shadow work. What that means is that I help self-aware, soul-searching people to turn basically their negative emotions, their triggers, mainly anger, frustration, pain, sadness, or guilt, turn them into authentic confidence and thriving relationships. And that might sound quite, contradictory, but yeah, that's what we do, and really own all of ourselves. See all our parts, and I do that through my group coaching program, Love Your Demons, and through one-on-one coaching programs. And I'm originally from Central Europe. Then I met my husband. I never planned to move away from my country. Like I grew up in Slovakia and never planned to live abroad. And then I met my husband, who's British. I moved to be with him, and then we moved together to Australia when I was 7 months pregnant with our first baby. And then we got here, and I had another baby, and we got married, and I have a 15-year-old stepson as well. So that's who I am, very in a nutshell.
Beautiful. Yeah, I love the openness in sharing, and I honestly could not imagine moving 7 months pregnant. That would probably be like, oh wow, you're moving really far away from your network, and that just to me, whenever because when I share my story, everyone's like, you're so brave. But when I hear stories like that, I'm like, wow, you're growing a human, and you had your community, and then you left. I'm like, wow, you're so brave. So on that topic, and diving more into shadows that come up when you're traveling, how do you think? What is your experience in the shadows just following you when you travel? We'll start there. Yeah.
Okay, well, first let's start what your shadows are. Okay, so that we have all the same understanding. Because in my understanding, shadows are, or if you want to call it, limiting beliefs, negative emotions, triggers, they're all part of yourselves, right? So there are parts of ourselves that have been rejected or suppressed or hidden for various reasons. Mainly because we wanted to be loved and accepted and survive in the social group where we grew up. So the shadow work, what it does, or what the shadows is it's a part of you that you don't want to be, right? The shadow is a part of me that I don't want to see, that I probably don't like about myself, and definitely don't like about other people. And it's all our self-doubt, just all the nastiness. And surprisingly, and this is what many people don't know, it's also your hidden potential. So anything that you admire on other people, or that you're jealous of or envious of, is also in your shadow. So that's all your part as well. So when you say your shadow follows you wherever you go, well, clearly because it's you, right? It's like the physical shadow of yours doesn't leave you, right? Wherever you are on the earth, when sun shines at you, it leaves a shadow. There it is, wherever you go. And it's especially it's very, very common that the shadow part of ourselves resurfaces when we move away or move abroad or really make any big transition in life. Because that's when it's like honestly going on a new level, right? Opening this new chapter. And I like to use the analogy of a computer game. You go to a new level. Congratulations, you've mastered the previous one. Bigger monsters come, right? And you're still playing the same game. You're still the same character in the game, right? You still have the same strengths, same weaknesses. It's all you, and here you are in this new environment. When you move abroad, usually there's a lot of discomfort because, like you said, you lose your community, right? You lose your support system, and even though there are usually good reasons why you do it. Hopefully, you do it for the good reasons, not just to run away or escape. But for any reasons that you take that step, it will call you forward. It will kind of activate that new level within you with all the good. It strengthens you up and empowers you, and all the tough, like all the challenges, all the monsters. That they just come up again. So if you struggle with, like we were talking about just a moment ago, fear of rejection, there you are. Well, everyone can reject you here because no one cares about you. Guess what? No one really cares. There's no strings attached, no past. No one knows why they should care about you, right? Why they should want to be in your space. If there's fear of not being enough, yes, right? Hello. That was definitely a part of my struggle when I first moved here. I had this wonderful community and running business in Slovakia. And then I came here and I felt like no one's ever heard from me before, right? Oh, who are you? This like young girl from what's perceived as Eastern Europe. Who are you now to tell us how to live, pretty much, right? Because I'm a transformational coach. It's all the stuff that you have within you to heal. If it's really like a core story, it will keep appearing for you at any new level that you allow yourself to reach. And moving abroad is a huge transition, and it will definitely call you forward and it's a huge opportunity for personal growth if you're willing to do it and if you have the tools and skills.
Yeah, 100%. I always tell everyone, and even just people who I talk to who I just share with them, hey, I'm doing this podcast, right? Like I'm talking to people about the emotional and psychological aspects of moving abroad. They're like, I remember yesterday I told someone, they're like, "Ooh, like, yeah, no, moving abroad was the most like personal growth, like character changing thing I could have done," because she like lived in China, then she lived in, South America, and she was teaching English, and she was just moving and moving around. And she was just saying, like, no, like that was one of the most catalyzing things I could have done for my personal growth. And even me, I think about it like where I moved, like I have family here. Like this is where like my ancestry comes back and everything, but I didn't grow up with them. And I'm not necessarily in the mindset where I'm just gonna call them if I'm like in a pinch and I need something because I don't have that relationship, right? Like I don't have that community. It's the weirdest thing to know, oh, I have family here, but they're actually really not. Like they're just like it's just blood relation because I don't have that sense of community and relationship with them. So in a sense, like moving here has really made me like really think about this, like, oh, like yeah, I mean I have family, right? I have blood family, but that sense of community and that sense of connection that I like, I want of people who, aren't into the same things as me or see, the world the same way as I do, has taken some time to build. And I've been here almost 2 years, and it's just now that I'm really starting to foster those relationships. But I also think it's because, as you were mentioning, like I will say this on the record, I do have a wound of rejection, and I'm actively working on it. And this is where I always tell people: own your shadow, own your shadow, talk about it, share it with people. Because the more you share it with people, the more you realize it's a common experience. And it's not really as taboo as you think it is if you keep it to yourself.
That's exactly what I was thinking when you started to talk about it. I was thinking, well, who doesn't have a fear of rejection, right? Who doesn't? Honestly, if you're psychologically healthy, you have a part of it. You have to, because it's so ingrained in us that we need other people to survive, right? We've always in the history needed other people to survive. And when we are born, it takes a long time to be able to function on your own. So it's so important to be in a part of a group, to be social. It's a matter of survival. Not it's like, oh, it's nice to have other people around me, right? It feels nice. No, it feels safe. It's like it's you live or die, really. So that's why this is so important for us to feel like, oh, this is where I belong, right? I belong here. I have my people here. I find it as like one of the defining factors of the move wherever it is, and it can be even be within a country, right? Just you can even move 100 kilometers away and feel the same feelings and have this sort of experience. That if it's gonna like end up successful or not, that community sense. Right? Have you found your people? And that can be just one person, but it gives you that sense of belonging, that like sense of safety, which is so primal to us.
Yes, I couldn't agree with you more about that because, the more I've been diving more into this aspect of the nervous system and the brain, and we're primal beings, right? Like we're instinctive, like we're part of the animal kingdom. Um, we need to live in community. This idea that we can be isolated and just operate on our own is quite, I don't know where it came from and how like society has gone to this extreme of we just all like live behind screens, because it really is a primal need, and they say that if a baby is born and they don't have human connection or they don't have, like, some type of, connection, they'll die. Because we're quite literally hardwired for connection. And as scary as that might be, right, to step out of your comfort zone, to build relationships with people who don't speak the same language as you, at least in my case, I recognize that it's a very normal and primal need for me to want to relate and to feel some kind of connection, or to feel some type of, this person cares for me and I care for them. Because it's literally like we're meant to be in community. We're meant to live together. And that's why, I always say, it takes time, right? And even if it's one person in your community, but I always say, like, it's okay to tap into your community that you have at home, right? Like when you're abroad and you're feeling really alone and you need support, it's okay to be like, hey, I'm having a hard time. Can I have support? Because it's just good for the nervous system. It's good for your brain to know that even though maybe physically you don't have your people, you can't go get a good cup of coffee, they are there for you. They're waiting for you to, call them. At least my support, my support system is. um, so I'll preface that, if I reach out to my support system, they're happy to talk to me, even though, I'm away. But I think it's important that, wherever you go, you have at least some type of community that is physical, or at least it is a conversation on the phone, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, this was quite challenging for myself in the beginning, in the first month or so, because I moved away so far away. So the time difference was quite big. So I remember waiting until like 4 or 5 o'clock in the afternoon when my friends and family back in Europe woke up, and finally someone was there to chat to, right? Because I had a newborn and like physically challenging pregnancy, so I wasn't exactly out there meeting people, right? And just having fun, enjoying my life. Uh, so yeah, it's definitely fantastic that we do have these tools now. That it's actually so easy to connect with your previous community and support system. And at the same time, uh, I think it's important to face your current reality, and not just because it's easy to just talk to those people on the phone now and feel like, yeah, I'm not lonely, I'm fine. I still have these connections, right? So actually to be where you are or chose to be ideally, and uh, it's a fantastic opportunity because you get so much time with yourself, which we rarely get actually in life. uh, so much time just by ourselves, just with our thoughts, just with our feelings. The struggle is, like you said, it gets uncomfortable, right? And so the capacity of how much I can be with the discomfort, how much I can offer myself compassion and understanding in the discomfort will be crucial on that journey. And regardless of what comes up for you, it can be the fear of rejection, it can be the sense of not enoughness, it can be that loneliness creeping up at the end of the day at you. You might have fun with someone during the day, but at the end of the day, it's just you. Any of it, and all the rest are on really just parts of you, like resurfacing now, and they're here for you to pay attention to them. That is really paying attention to yourself, and this is what we're not used to do, especially these days when the attention span is shortening. There are so many other distractions. So paying attention to yourself is actually a courageous act. It's a rebellious act in the era of internet and social media and all of it. So really sitting with yourself, and whatever negative emotion comes up, or whatever negative circumstance, right, or situation comes up, just sitting with that fundamental question: what is the gift? What's the gift in it for me? And this really comes from believing that this is all happening for me, right? And in some form, I'm actually co-creating all of this, right? It's not a coincidence that I get these situations in my life, that I get this, I meet this kind of people in my life. Like, it's all a mirror, right? The world is a mirror of my own inner world. So let's have a look at that. What does it make me feel? What kind of person does it, is it like forcing me to be? So yeah, and these are all parts of ourselves to heal. And to be very specific, it can be, that you have very positive experiences, which is great. You meet people who are friendly and nice, and you're, yeah, this is a fantastic country to be in. And then you also can, meet people who really reject you very easily, right? Or people who can be like selfish, or can take advantage of you because you don't know your way around yet. So it can be really all sorts of and it will be a combination and a mix of adventures. So really looking at, oh, okay, I met several people, let's say, with the same kind of quality, with the same kind of trait. So it seems to me like, oh, everyone is taking advantage here, right? Or everyone is so inconsiderate, or everyone is, this and that. Well, it's you co-creating this reality, right? It's your brain processing all of it. So let's look at these parts of yourself. Is it possible that you have a part that is inconsiderate, that you have a part that is, I don't know what it was that I said before, taking advantage of others or yourself, or being manipulative or unfriendly or hostile or rejecting, right? The fear of rejection isn't nothing else, like it's nothing else than rejecting myself, right? I worry that other people will reject me as a reflection of me rejecting parts of myself. That's why we all have fears of rejection, because we're not capable of like accepting fully all of ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
That would be enlightenment. We're not there yet.
Yeah. It's a journey there, right?
Yeah.
On that subject, I had a really interesting situation happen in December. So I live in Mexico, and it's no secret that Mexico is a very patriarchal culture. It is. And I was at like a Christmas party, or it was like New Year's or something. I don't know what was going on, but I was voicing my boundaries, and the counterparty to that is very, very, very counteractive for a female to be enforcing their boundaries in Mexico, right? Because it's very patriarchal. And I just remember feeling so irritated that like I was consistently being told to like calm down, or like, are you okay? La 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 la, when I was just voicing my boundaries. And when I think back to that situation, like there was a lot that was happening there, because I used to be so afraid to voice my boundaries. Like, oh no, I would not voice my boundaries because I just wanted to make everyone happy and people please, right? But in this situation, I realized there was like a moment for me to recognize, even though this is uncomfortable, this is me actually showing that I'm growing. I am in a different culture, but just because I'm in a different culture doesn't mean that I need to revert to people pleasing or I need to be quiet on what actually is my boundaries. It is healthy for me to enforce my boundaries because that is how I preserve my well being. And so there was this whole like lesson in that because the counterparty was kind of like, are you okay, like making a whole big like deal out of it, when simply I was just enforcing my boundaries. I know what works for me and I know what's okay with me. And it was just a very very like the day after, I was really sitting in it and thinking about it because I remember in the moment feeling so activated in my nervous system, and I was like, well, this is happening because I'm enforcing my boundaries in a culture that technically, like, this is not normal for a female to be doing. I have a history of not enforcing my boundaries, and I'm taking a leap, right?
Yes, yes, and that's worth celebrating and acknowledging yourself for, like, wow, maybe 2 or 5 years ago I would not be able to do this,
Mhm.
right? I would probably do something very different. I'd probably just sit there and let whatever is happening happen to me, right? So this is a very empowering moment. Beautiful, very
Yeah.
beautiful.
So I always like to share those things because I am often perceived as someone who like doesn't take any shit, or I'm very just like on my own things. But I do have kind of the shadow side where I do want everyone to be happy, and I have in the past. Like the shadow side is, I think it's great that I want everyone to be happy, but I think the shadow side of that, let me rephrase this, is that I used to put others' needs before my own, and I was afraid to voice what I really needed. And so, me taking these leaps and bounds of it is healthy for me to voice my boundaries in a healthy way and recognizing these moments when I do stand up for it. And that doesn't mean that it's easier, right? Like,
Well, it does get easier over time,
yes.
right? As you get used to it. But this is exactly what you said is so crucial to just pin down, really, because it's all about the wholeness. So on one side, it's great and it's very nice and kind to want everybody to be happy, right? The shadow part of it is when we take it to the extreme, because if we actually in the equation of saying I want everyone to be happy, forget about ourselves. Like, are you not part of everyone? you know, that's actually so funny when you say, oh, I just want everyone to be happy, right? I'm okay. But that excludes you from that everyone. If it doesn't make you happy, then you're not fulfilling what you want. So it's always about the extremes. On one side, you can become a people pleaser, right? A pushover, a doormat, uh, let alone an extreme like abused or whatnot. And on the other side, if on the other side of the extreme, of course, you don't want to be aggressive and violent, right? But you need to embrace this side of you to be able to set the boundaries straight and firm and loud, exactly where you have them.
Hmm.
Because if this is what happens when we just push away this whole like aggressive part of ourselves or demanding part of ourselves. I don't want to be nasty to people, right? I don't want to be rude. Oh my God, I want to be a good girl, right?
Hmm.
And the good girl is polite and nice, and listens or does as she's told, or and this is the shadow work. Really is embracing both of these parts, on all of these parts of the duality, right? Because everything exists in duality in our perception. Uh, to be able to use gifts of all of it. So you were able to, now you're able to use the part of you that wants everyone to be happy, because that helps you create contribution to the world, right? Do the work you do, how you serve people is beautiful. And at the same time, because you've embraced the other side of yourself, you're able to voice your boundaries and stand up for yourself and speak up for what you care about, for what you stand for. And that's exactly the result of shadow work being done in the right way. You just suddenly realize, oh, I can do this now, right? Like, oh, this is like happening to me now, like this has changed. I just spoke to a friend who's a past client of mine the other day, and she said, "Oh, you know, last week my husband just told me twice that he loves me out of the blue, even though they were facing a very challenging time in their marriage not long before. Uh, it's like we still love each other, but it's really challenging and it's hard, right?" And she goes, "I don't know what happened. He just changed." I'm like, well, that doesn't just happen, right? You just spent like 2 months doing the work, right? Really paying attention to yourself, healing loads of parts of yourselves. Well, yes, of course, your reality changes. But as a result of it, it changes so naturally that we don't even like see the connection, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah. I feel like this is where I always say, like, take a good look at your environment though. Like, I'm always like, take a good look at your environment, because I had to face the hard lesson of I was doing the inner work and I was working so much. But the thing is I actually, when I think about this from this lens, I think it was just I outgrew my environment. I had such awareness that the environment that I was in was no longer suited for where I was going. So I don't, I find that very interesting that I think about that, because I was doing so much inner work, and where I was, and in my marriage and doing all that, the other party was not in a space where they wanted to meet me where I was going, and, going in the same direction. And I was still committed to my work of embracing me and finding that wholeness within, right? And I think this is where people get really tripped up sometimes, is when the environment is no longer, I guess, in alignment or like in balance with who you're becoming. And then this is where the heavy piece of shadow work comes in, because you need to decide. And this is where I feel like, I made the decision to step out of that marriage, to move forward to separation, to get divorced, because I realized there was actually a shadow amongst the situation of, can I do this on my own? Can I be alone? Can I physically be alone in life, right?
Mm.
So there's actually a huge shadow side to that. But as you said, as you said earlier, we were just talking, new level, new devil.
Yeah, new level, same devil, right?
Oh, new level, same devil. Sorry.
Yeah, yeah. Well, that's exactly it. What happens when you move abroad? If yeah, that loneliness creeps up, that fear of, oh, I'm not likable, right? People won't like me, and I'll be alone, and this like feeling alone another huge fear, very deep rooted. And actually, I'm divorced as well from my first husband, and it's so funny, like looking back, because I did not realize. I remember, a time before we got divorced, before we even mentioned it, right? That wasn't even in my like perception world at all. But I was doing my shadow work just proactively, and I looked back in my journals. What kind of shadows was I kind of integrating, right? And this was 6 months prior to my divorce, and I wrote like, I am divorced, right? I'm on my own, right? I'm like, it's all just on me, no support, etc. Like all these kind of worries that come up when you do get divorced, and they do come up, right? There's a big shift in thinking and really stepping into that fact that there's no crutch. Like it's like you looking after yourself, full stop. Even if you were, financially contributing before or anything, it's just different when you are on your own. And I was doing all this shadow work, and I believe that thanks to the work that I have done before, we ended up like getting divorced as quickly and as smoothly as we did. And like to this day, I believe it was like one of the best divorces I've heard about. Uh, it still doesn't mean that I recommend it. It's like divorce is a shitty experience, right? It's challenging. Uh, but if it needs to happen, if it's the right thing, to happen, then you want it to happen, quickly and smoothly and in ideally in agreement and all of that. And that was fortunately our case. But yeah, I think that the subconscious needed to kind of work through something. I needed to work through something to even open up the possibilities for what's actually right. Because it was absolutely the right decision for both of us. We ended up so much better for it. But yeah, that doesn't make it easy, does it?
No, it does not. It does not make it an easy decision. But and I always reflect on that, right? Because I actually think about, you just prompted me to think about what I was journaling about before I got divorced. It was really prioritizing being my authentic self and prioritizing embracing who I really am and what I really want. And when I look back, because I got married really young, truth be told, made that decision with my head, not fully like my heart. And when I think back on that, it was really about being authentic and what was in alignment. And when I sit in this space right now, I'm not really that person who wants to be married. Like there's something about it that there's something about it that I'm working through, that I'm kind of exploring. I don't have a fear of commitment, but there's something about a piece of paper that just really throws me off. Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah, I know, right? I have no problem with the idea of commitment. I'm a very loyal person. I really did do a lot of effort into trying to make my marriage work and trying to work through that. But yeah, it's very interesting. It's a dichotomy that I'm working through myself of, I don't have a fear of commitment. I don't have a fear of being loyal of that, but the whole idea of a piece of paper just really throws me off.
Now I'm really curious. I would love to explore that with you more, but this is not the time and space to do so.
We can talk about that another time. But with that being said, what advice would you give to someone who is traveling and they're finding themselves really facing some heavy shadows?
Hmm. The first thing I would say really is to find that deep belief within you that this is all happening for you somehow. When, like you said, if someone's facing deep shadows right now, which that in the human language it means that they're not doing well, right? Everything looks like it's not working out for me. It's hard, it's challenging. Like, why is this happening? Why it keeps happening? Why I don't feel supported. Like the whole nervous system is getting agitated, activated. So yeah, it means I don't feel good right now, and I'm struggling, and I don't know what to do about it. Right? Like nothing seems to work. So that's the kind of situation that we're talking about when we say facing your deep shadows. It sounds like what you're facing. Well, it's a tough time, right? It's a challenging time in your life, and that can be physically, like you can have injuries or get sick. Like my pregnancy was a shadow kind of time for me, when I went from being super active and social to not being able to get out of the couch, and just like pew, nothing, not wanting to see anybody, just trying to survive. Right, being super scared the first time around, being super scared when the baby arrives. How will I take care of it when I can't even take care of myself at the moment? Luckily, that passed. but um, that deep trust that this has there's a lesson for me in it, right? That's what we need to start with, that you just know that this is for you, even though you can't see the way out of it and you can't see the like lesson learned from it yet. Just know that this is all for me, right? And even if you should just like sit with that mantra for a few minutes every day, for like 3 minutes every day, just sit with that, then will actually help your nervous system to integrate whatever it is that needs to be integrated. That's the beginning. And when you can kind of rely on this knowing that somehow this is happening for you and for your own growth, then the question is, then what is it that I'm meant to learn here, right? What is the gift here? What am I afraid of that is being mirrored to me, right? And I actually did another process like this myself just like earlier this week, because like we said, it's a lifelong journey, right? So I found all of a sudden on this teeny tiny situation, I realized that, oh, like there's this fear that's bigger than I thought. So I sat with that, like in like a meditation, and I was thinking, oh, what's the gift of this? And it felt horrible. Like I was shaking. It was so uncomfortable. Um, and I was thinking, what it is that I'm afraid of. And there it was. It was my own power reflected to me like, oh my God, yes. Because on some level, it's still easier to stay small. It's still easier to be more in the victim mode. It's still like easier or more comfortable. I was like, oh, okay, like really feeling even more into my own power, my own confidence, integrate that. And it was, in the end, a beautiful experience. But this is exactly what we're talking about the whole time, like sitting with the discomfort and with the shittiness of what is now, and seeing what part of me is here to be seen, to be heard. And then in the end, you will find your biggest light. Like the shadow work shows you your biggest light that you didn't even know you have. Like all your hidden potential. Oh, like honestly, the life I have now, I wouldn't even dream of creating for myself. Right. And so many huge chapters and leaps in my life I wouldn't have, like the divorce, even meeting my new husband, and even just doing this work. I almost didn't become a coach because I said no to like a dream job offer because I was so scared and had self-doubt and whatnot. And I worked through shadow work through it, and 2 months later, there we go. Right. So if you are facing a horrible situation, like let's acknowledge it sucks, right? Let's not try to make it, oh, this will pass. This will pass. It's fine. Like it will pass. The truth is, yes, but it's not the fact, the case of, time will heal itself. Time doesn't heal on its own in a positive way. In a relationship, time will heal, yeah, and you may grow apart. Right? So if you want to use the time for your own good, you actually do some proactive work with yourself, sitting with yourself. And there are heaps of resources, free resources, books and online and whatnot that you can like listen to meditations or have shadow work journals, all of it. So you just find whatever it is that calls you right now, gratitude journals, God knows what, to acknowledge that this is here for me. What's the gift in it? Once you're able to see it, you're free.
Really, that was so beautiful and so heartwarming because really, this is like part of the process of the evolvement of growing. And it is so important to just recognize like this is hard. Like, this is really hard stuff. And yes, it's going to pass. But I feel like when we fixate on it passing and we don't really acknowledge what's like showing up for us, we end up staying there a lot longer than we need to, or the lesson repeats itself in the future. In my personal experience, but I'm like, yeah, this is going to pass. It's going to pass. And then I get the lesson the same way. I get the same lesson in a different way. So I will say, learning to be like, it's not like just learning to be okay with being uncomfortable for sometimes and knowing that this is uncomfortable and this sucks and this is hard. And I'm just going to sit with it because when we really sit with it, like I really believe we're able to transmute that dense energy. We're able to process it in the way that it wants to be processed. And this is why I always say, like, we're part of nature. Nature has its own timeline. And so, the more we just embrace that, the more we really give ourselves a really beautiful opportunity to grow and evolve in our own timing. Because, I have my timeline, you have your own timeline. And the more we accept and embrace that, the more we can really just tune into what is our true, authentic path.
So much. Yeah. Well, just one thing is, yeah, acceptance is the ultimate way to freedom. And I don't care which way you do it, like ideally on all levels, right? Mentally, emotionally, just through your body, right? Somatic work is beautiful to just work through acceptance unconsciously, behaviorally, all of it. And the way you just connected it to the nature, it's a really, I heard this analogy the other day A tree doesn't doubt its own potential to grow, right? It just grows over time naturally. It happens. And this is fascinating when I found out, because we have these big fires in Australia, right? And fires, and just like in California, right, there are fires too. Like every year they happen, every year. And one thing is that there is a core to the tree which is fireproof, which I was mind blown about. That, there's fireproof wood, okay. Uh, and the second part of it is that the tree actually needs the fire to regrow again and to have new, like, petals and fruits and all of it. Like, it needs to burn a little, or a lot. And this is exactly what we go through when we go through a huge transition, like starting a life abroad. And like you said, it takes a few years actually to really settle down. So let's not try to skip the timeline here either. And see, like, wow, like, I'm in the middle of fire at the moment. But it's a good fire. It's a healing fire, right? I'm gonna regrow from this.
Yeah. It's so beautiful. I always say this idea of like it's the feminine energy of the world that we live in, the universe that we live in. It's the feminine energy. Everyone thinks of the feminine energy as like caring and nurturing, but really feminine energy is destructive. It comes in and it destroys because it's going to begin again. It's going to rebirth something new. It's going to create something new. That's my experience with the feminine. Obviously, feminine has it's a whole other conversation. So on that note, if anyone wants to get in contact with you, Petra, what's the best way?
Well, easiest is on Instagram. The handle is Petra Williams Coach, all together. Or I'm quite active on Facebook on my personal profile, Petra Williams, and there's a page, Petra Williams Coaching / Love Your Demons. And that's it. Really happy to. I have a free meditation that's called You're Enough.
Beautiful. I'll make sure to put your links in the description so that anyone can access them. So, on the note, thank you so much, Petra, for such a beautiful conversation. I found this conversation so healing because as someone who really does, I do my shadow work. To just talk about it in such a open conversational way is just really healing. And I feel like this is medicine for someone who really is going to need it. So I really appreciate you here and sharing.
Thank you so much. I feel like sending you a big hug. I'm a big hugger, so I'm hugging you because, yes, like, sharing in a safe space is very, very healing, and shame and all of these negative emotions can't survive like sharing in a safe space.
Yeah.
Thank you for
So
providing
good.
such a space.
Yes. Thank you for being here and sharing and so good. I feel so warm inside because this is the kind of conversation that I would say like feeds my soul. So on that note, thank you everyone for tuning in, and until next time, this is your host Marisol signing off of Roaming the Now. Until next time, take care wherever you are in the world. Thanks for tuning in to this episode of Roaming the Now. And until next time, make sure to like and subscribe if you found some value in this episode, and check out the links in the description. You can find the link to get the Roaming the Now episodes delivered directly to your inbox in the description below. So until our next episode, have fun, live in the present moment, and enjoy roaming the now wherever you are in the world.